Palworld released one of the most majestic pals it has ever created, Hartalis, in its latest update, and I am trying to find out whether we could defeat Hartalis and Hartalis Ultra in 100 days. My first objective was to reach level 10 as quickly as possible to unlock the Serpent Saddle. I explored the starting region, collecting as many items as possible, especially Paldium fragments and Pal spheres, while gathering stone and wood to complete the early missions. At this stage of the game, the fastest way to gain EXP is by completing missions. Not only do they reward you with EXP, but they also provided Pal spheres, allowing us to capture more Pals for the capture bonus EXP. My main goal in day 1 was to complete as many missions as possible while capturing Pals. And every Pal that I captured would serve multiple purposes, which I will explain as the run progresses. I started by capturing a lamb ball as it provided wool, which I needed to craft the cloth armor and the Pal gear workbench. Its handiwork level 1 also helped speed up my early craftings. Next, I headed downhill, capturing a Pangullet, unlocking the grassy Behemoth Hill waypoint, and capturing 3 Fox Parks. Along the way, I accepted a side mission from the farmer's girl to deliver her dish to a guard at the small settlement. On the way there, I captured a life monk and 2 flugs. Once I arrived, I placed a Pal box, added life monk to my party, and assigned lamb ball to the base to start crafting structures for my base levels. I then jumped down towards the settlement, purchasing 7 wheat from a wandering merchant and completed several missions. I presented my life monk to the arrogant Pal critic for 10 Pal spheres, delivered a water Pal to the struggling farmer for mega spheres, gold and EXP, and lastly, I gave the dish to the security guard. After that, I used the waypoint to return to my base. To minimize downtime, I let my lamb ball continue crafting the cloth I needed in my base while I explored the area and headed towards the desolate church, capturing a rush ball for mining and several flugs for leather and Pal fluids. I then moved towards the bridge of the Twin Knights waypoint, capturing a Jode Hog and 2 Dire Howls, which also provided leather. This gave me access to a solid mount at level 9. Since I hadn't reached level 9 yet, I returned to the base, placed down a Pal gear workbench, and headed back to the grassy Behemoth Hill to complete the Farmer's Girl side mission and captured several more Pals, pushing me to level 9 and allowing me to craft the Dire House saddle. Once crafted, I rode west, unlocking the Ravine waypoint and headed straight to the sealed realm of the Swordmaster waypoint, where the lowest level water mounts, serpents, could spawn. Since the serpents were difficult to fight directly at this point, I used a different strategy, allowing the 2 serpents to damage each other, and once both of them were low enough, I headed back into the battle and captured both of them. I headed southwest to the Small Cove waypoint and captured several more Pals, pushing me to level 10 and returned to my base to craft the Serpent Saddle. While crafting the Serpent Saddle, I also began crafting the cloth armor and travelled south from the Small Cove waypoint along the river. I then headed west, eventually reaching Fisherman Point and purchased the heat-resistant undershirt from the wandering merchant. Next, I explored Terraria Island, collecting the loot spawns in the area, trying to obtain dog coins and ultimate spheres. I then continued west, towards Fabric Island and repeated the process and gathering more loot. Eventually, this route allowed me to collect 100 dog coins, which I used to purchase the multi-climate undershirt +1. Combined with the thermal undershirt and the cloth armor, this gave me full resistance to all weather conditions. I continued to pick up loot spawns throughout Fabric Island and made sure to pick up every piece of ore along the way, as I would be smelting them into iron ingots. Eventually, I reached the Fabric Shipwreck waypoint and returned to base to begin crafting the Cativa fishing rod unlocked at level 15. But wait, wasn't I just level 10? I used the Ultra Spheres I obtained from the loot spawns to capture a Least Punk summoned by the Rain Syndicate enemies at the Golden Hill. I then turned the Least Punk into the Wanderer NPC near the Emberstone Plateau waypoint for a mission, earning me 300,000 EXP and instantly reaching level 30. I then headed west from the Shipwreck waypoint to the level 60 oil rig, where the highest level fishing spawns could appear. To maximize my chances, I targeted basic fishing spots without any sparkles or glitter. Unfortunately, my first pal caught was a level 60 Azurabe. I returned to the Shipwreck waypoint and continued gathering loot spawns throughout the Frost region of Fabric Island, and eventually I collected 23 Ultimate Spheres. I travelled to the deserted Ash Plateau in hopes of capturing a Gildane, which I could present to the arrogant Pal critic in Fabric Island for 15 chromite that could be turned in to the mining researcher for another mission to give me 300,000 EXP and a mining technique handbook. But luckily for me, I encountered a supply drop which also gave me the chromite I needed instead. I then returned to my base and crafted a heavyweight module to boost my capture rate, as well as turn in the Life Monk effigies. Then I headed towards the center of Fabric Island to challenge the Beast of Salvation, Celestia. Since my Azurabe was level 60, it wasn't affected by any level-based damage penalties, which allowed me to deal solid damage to the boss. So, I focused on dodging its attacks while constantly resummoning my Azurabe and using a Pal Box to reset its attacks cooldowns as well as set a respawn point. Eventually, I captured Celestia on day 4. Next, I travelled to the icy northern mountains to challenge the legendary Steed of Ice, Frostallion. My first attempt failed, costing me 10 minutes while waiting for Celestia to respawn, and during that time, I continued to explore other areas that I would need in the future. And once I was ready, I returned and used Celestia's powerful abilities, Holy Burst and Air Blades, to defeat and capture Frostallion on day 5. From here, I focused on capturing key pals that I needed for my base and began developing my temporary base next to the Desolate Church. Previously, while my Celestia was recovering from my first failed attempt, I spent the 10 minutes unlocking the Sunlit Owl, followed by the Owl of the Decayed Treasures at the foot of the volcano waypoint. I had also managed to obtain a Kelpsie with remarkable craftsmanship on day 4 on my way towards Frostallion's location. I headed back to the Owl of the Decayed Treasures and made my way to the Oasis Owl, taking a small detour to the Scars of War location to capture the Yomentide Alpha Boss for watering level 4. Wait a minute. I then captured 2 bee guards which I could place in the ranch to produce honey. Next, I returned to the Sunlit Owl, trying to head towards the Island Hopper waypoint, but luckily, I also encountered the second rainbow trait that I needed for the run, Swift. I then handed over a Fwak to the Fwak researcher, rewarding me with the Homeward Thundercloud, which I had used to collect the materials I had placed in my original base location. On day 6, I used the foot of the volcano waypoint to head towards and capture the cursed tyrant Belazamute for its level 4 mining and kindling. I then travelled to the Twilight Dunes, capturing Anubis for level 4 handiwork, then headed to the Oasis Isle to capture Braloha for level 4 gathering and planting. I then headed towards the Fisherman's Point to purchase lettuce and tomato seeds for their respective plantations, and continued to develop my base and placing down several breeding farms. Including my potential Yormentide Alpha boss with level 4 watering, these piles were necessary to speed up my cake production, as breeding was going to be a troublesome task with the incubation period on the default server settings. And so, rather than spreading out my various breeding details throughout the run, I am going to be explaining all of it in one sitting. I first took the Kelp Sea with remarkable craftsmanship and passed the trait down to a Loot Moon, and eventually passing its trait down to a Grisbolt. With Grisbolt, you can breed a Gangler, a Braloha, a Nubis, Orzuk, and Astagon, which were all 5 decent endgame pals. Moving on to day 7, I captured a second Blazamute and a Vanwyrm from the Ravine for level 3 gathering, to minimize my downtime collecting items in the base. I then crafted a grappling hook to make exploring much easier. I then defeated Lily and her Lylene, unlocking the ore mining site, and finally captured the Yormentide Alpha boss. On day 8, I unlocked the Oculus Gate waypoint and defeated the Incineram-knocked Predator Pal and headed north, collecting loot spawns along the way and unlocking the Shield Dragon Tunnel waypoint. Since the Predator Pals were going to be my main source of experience and giant Pal souls, defeating Predator Pals is going to be the first activity I did each in-game day moving forward. On day 9, and continued developing my base and collecting loot spawns in the deserted Ash Plateau. In day 10, I finally obtained enough Dog Coins to purchase the legendary V1 armor schematic from the Dog Coin merchant in the Desolate Church, and began preparing the materials I needed for the armor. This was a major milestone, as the legendary V1 armor could be easily obtained as soon as the primitive furnace was unlocked at level 10, and actually had a similar performance to endgame armors such as the legendary Hexalite armor, essentially giving me the first of my endgame equipment for the fight against Hartalis. I also presented my Frostallion to the NPC near the Desolate Church for another mission, giving me 300,000 EXP and a Handiwork Technique Handbook. I also headed to the sealed realm of the Frozen Wings, capturing the Pangolets in the dungeon and refreshing their spawns by exiting the dungeon until I had 20 Pangolets. I headed towards the Fisherman's Point to collect coal from the nearby clusters to craft the Frostallion saddle and ideally replace the dire hull I had been riding until this point. I then headed towards the Sunlit Isle and fortunately capturing the last rainbow trait I wanted, Demon God. I then made my way towards the Pal Genetic Research Tower, defeating Victor and his Shadowbeak to unlock the Astral Frost Cavern Expedition, providing me with one ancient civilization core every 30 minutes by simply placing the 20 Pangolets I had captured previously. On day 12, since my Ultra Kill armor was nearly completed, I headed towards the Isle of the Glacial Core where Neptilus could be found, and continued to collect loot spawns throughout the map, waiting for my armor to be completed. I also captured the Blue Lightning Steed, Azura Mane, and a Nightmare, which doubled the number of Pal Souls I could obtain from the Predator Pals. And once my Ultra Q armor was completed, I entered the dungeon and captured my favorite legendary Pal and also the strongest, Neptilius. Since Neptilius trivialized the battles against the Predator Pals, I had the time to include the third Predator Pal in Fabric Island, Bushinoct, into my routine, as well as the Terraria dungeon, in hopes of obtaining the legendary Terra Prisma schematic and Vortex Beater, which are my ideal weapons of choice for the Hartalis raid and my everyday use respectively. Eventually, I ended the night defeating the leaders of the Eternal Pyre, Exo and his Orzuk, to unlock the Cold Mining Site and set my sights on the legendary Celestial Dragon, Jet Dragon, and eventually captured it. Starting from day 14, I began farming Kinship Peaches from the enemy bases in the Snowy Mountains and Sakurajima by rushing into the bases, opening the large treasure chests, and exiting to the menu. This caused the surrounding enemies to despawn, allowing you to unlock the chest hassle-free. On day 22, I began breeding a bunch of Yakumos that I needed to pass down the Swift, Vanguard, and Stronghold strategists to one of the mounts I needed for the Hartalis battle, Frostalion Noct, and fortunately obtained a Frostalion Noct with Swift on day 26. On day 27, I obtained my endgame helmet of choice, the Eye of Cthulhu, and proceeded not to equip the equipment for the rest of the run because I was a dumbass. Oh, and I also obtained the legendary Terra Prisma schematic, ending my grind in the Terraria dungeon. I had also obtained my first crude oil extractor, marking my first step towards the gigantic furnace. On day 28, I completed the mission at the Wildlife Sanctuary number 1, capturing an Ichthydia Terra and giving me an Awakening Starfruit level 1. I then headed to the desert region to defeat Marcus and his Phalaris using Neptilius. And I also completed the side mission No Mercy for the Thieves, giving me the Awakening Starfruit level 2. On day 31, I finally obtained 2,000 dog coins from collecting loot spawns throughout the map, allowing me to purchase the ripe Awakening Starfruit, which would allow me to raise the star level of any Pal by 1. On day 32, I began breeding Univolts to obtain a Univolt with Vanguard, Swift, and Stronghold Strategist, as Univolt was going to be my mount of choice for Phase 1 of Hartalis. I also began breeding a Fanglope with Demon God, which would then be bred with Azura Mane to pass down Demon God and the Thunder Railgun ability to my raid Pal of choice, Fanglope Lux. Day 33. Began building Skill Fruit Orchids in my base to begin duplicating the Apocalypse Skill Fruits that I had previously obtained in Fabric Island from the various Orchid Skill Fruit trees. On day 36, I obtained the Attack Pendant from the level 30 Oil Rig and the Attack Pendant +1 from the Desert Dungeon. Using the legendary Terra Prisma and a Chilled Ignis to convert my damage type from neutral to fire, I ran laps around the Fabric Tower boss, Bjorn, and his Bastigor, giving me the victory and unlocking the Hexolite Quartz mining site. On day 40, I managed to capture another Frostalion Noct with Vanguard, and while I will continue on to capture Frostalion Noct every hour, spoiler alert, I did not manage to obtain a Frostalion Noct with Stronghold Strategist and eventually settled for a non-alpha Frostalion Noct with Swift, Legend, and the Vanguard trait. And so, This is going to be the end of the day-by-day explanation for my run, but now it is time for me to explain my entire strategy for this challenge. As I mentioned previously, our initial objective was simply to obtain our endgame pals as quickly as possible, and so by unlocking the saddle at level 10 and immediately heading towards Fabric Island, I could not only obtain strong level 60 pals, but they also allowed me to capture Frostallion on day 5 and capture the higher leveled pals with level 4 work levels as soon as possible. In the meantime, I could also obtain the rainbow traits I wanted and began my breeding process as early as day 5. Next, for the raids, I needed to raise the strength of my pals to the maximum, thus I needed to raise their soul levels to 60, trust level to 10, as well as give them the correct abilities and traits for the raid. Pal souls were obtained by defeating predator pals, giving us a total of 4 giant souls each kill. And since they only spawned once a day, by defeating 4 predator pals in Fabric and 2 predator pals in Sakurajima, it gave me an average of 23 giant pal souls a day. And by using Nightmare, the number will be doubled to 46 giant souls per day. And to maximize the soul levels of my raid pals, my Univolt, and my Frostallion Noct, we needed a total of 1765 giant souls, which needed a minimum of 38 in-game days to collect. Trust levels could be raised by using Kinship Peaches, and since each pal needed a total of 10 Kinship Peaches, with the raid team and my mounts, I needed a total of 170 Kinship Peaches. And by farming the enemy bases in the Snowy Mountains and Sakurajima, we could obtain an average of 7.7 Kinship Peaches a day, needing a total of 22 days. For the raid team, my objective was to utilize 15 Fanglobe Luxes. Since Fanglobe Lux was a lightning pal, it had the type advantage against Hartalis in Phase 1. It is also part of the basic electric egg spawn pool with an incubation time of 5 minutes. This made it possible for me to breed enough copies to condense all 15 pals into 4 stars naturally. Fanglobe Lux also naturally learnt the attack Thunderstorm and could easily obtain the Demon God trait and the Thunder Railgun ability by passing down Demon God to a Fanglobe and breeding it with Azuramain, who possessed the Thunder Railgun ability. For its third ability, it can also be taught Apocalypse, using the skill fruit obtained in the WoW or from the Arena shop. These 3 abilities all had a large hitbox, which made it ideal against Hartalis' barrier mechanic. And additionally, all 3 of them have the type advantage against Hartalis in either Phase 1 or Phase 2. As for the battle, with the change to the Pal Pod strategy, players now needed to keep their raid pals alive by dealing enough damage themselves and keeping the raid boss's attacks centered around the player. So, I will be utilizing the meta player damage build of 4 fully condensed Godfins with Vanguard and Stronghold strategists, the 3 attack pendants, a fully condensed Univolt with Vanguard and Stronghold strategists, and a fully condensed Frostallion Noct with Vanguard. The Univolt and Frostallion Noct was also bred to have Swift, as it will allow me to dodge Hartalis attacks much more easily. And the 2 mounts also had to be a non-alpha to reduce their hitbox sizes as well. Univolt was condensed mainly by capturing wild Univolts in the bamboo groves, while Frostallion Noct was fully condensed by utilizing the Awakening Starfruit 1 from the main mission Wildlife Sanctuaries, Awakening Starfruit 2 from the side mission No Mercy for the Thieves, and Awakening Starfruit 3 from the side mission Farewell Under the Sakura Tree. And lastly, the Ripe Awakening Starfruit for 2000 dog coins from the dog coin merchant. As for our weapons, we will be utilizing the legendary Terra Prisma farmed from the Terraria dungeon, and the Overheat Rifle, which was going to be the endgame weapon with the highest DPS. All in all, I obtained 1,764 Giant Souls, 170 Kinship Peaches, 1,755 copies of Fanglo Bloods, 117 copies of Univolt, 1 copy of Frostalion Noct, and 468 copies of Godvins by day 76. Without spoiling the ending of the challenge, this battle was certainly not an easy one. In fact, this is like my 5th attempt in completing this challenge, which I had started all the way in November 2025 when Hartalis was just released. And no matter what, this was going to be my last attempt. Whether it was a success or a failure, I present to you my final battle in the challenge against Hartalis Ultra. Yes, so this was the ending of the challenge. I successfully defeated Hartalis Ultra on day 80. Honestly speaking, this felt really vindicating, especially since I've been trying to complete this challenge for literally like 5 months. And I've officially hit more than 1,000 hours in Palworld. And not gonna lie, pretty much more than half of it, around like 500 hours, was solely focused on this challenge itself. I've done like a total of 5 runs with many other failed runs that I stopped in between because the RNG wasn't so good or whatever, but yeah, all in all, this was a lot of fun and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of challenges, and do comment down below if there's any other challenges you think would be fun for me to try. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.